Okay, good morning, sisters and brothers. We're going to discuss a topic that maybe it might elude some people who didn't really follow it through, and that is how the term or how the name Mount Sinai takes us to the word desolation. And I'm not sure how thorough I was in my study on desolation, but I think just, quickly when you look the word Sinai up, you're going to go, well, how did you come to that? And, if you're not somebody who really studies, and that's really what this is about. It's about studying to show yourself approved unto the Holy One, the Spirit. That's who the Bible tells us is. I'm not an atheist. I do happen to believe in a bigger picture. I think we were created by a much larger entity than ourselves. I think our understanding has been stinted by religion, man made religion, not the truth. I don't happen to believe that we formed as bacteria, and I don't think there's a legitimate argument. I've looked at them, unless they've got some new ones out that I haven't looked at. I happen to believe we're intelligently designed. That isn't by a male God, father, and son. I don't believe in that. Nope, because the Bible does not validate it. I mean, we have proven what took place, and we're going to further that understanding when we take a look at these mountains. And there's more than one that comes into play when you're actually doing a thorough study, right? And sometimes it gets by us, right? Because we're not really factoring in everything. And it's hid, right? It's hid from our view. It comes down to how hard we're willing to dig for the information and the understanding, and how much we're willing um, to allow the Spirit to enlighten us as well. Um, that doesn't come by way of falling to our knees to an idol that we were warned, especially in passages like Deuteronomy 4. I know there's other passages that warns against idol worship, male or female. Now we understand that the Holy One, the Anointed One that was gave in covenant, came from above to give man the law of heaven, and that's considered the covenant that he agreed to, and it came off of her tongue. You were not to worship her, you weren't to bow down to her, you weren't to bow down to a hymn, a male idol, you were to follow the law. The New Testament would have you believe that grace, 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 and ignoring the law but following a man and his blood is the only way. That's a lie. Off of these idols' tongues that came to be developed by the pride of man rejecting the law off of her tongue. And we can prove it. We've proved it through many videos for those who are the true children of wisdom, who has the ability to reason it out and feels it in their heart. And I know when I would listen to men off the pulpit, those strings in my heart would pull and go, something's wrong here. Where are we daughters in this whole picture? We're hated. And you could feel the hatred emanating from the words, and you could. So let's take a look at how we actually understand um, all of this. Let me see here. How do I? No, I forget. Okay. Okay, I forget so easy. Um, okay, so we're going to go in, and I've set aside a bunch of passages here. Now, we know that there was a series of men. It happened with, it says there at Adam, they dealt treacherously, and the word treacherously is unfaithfully with me there. The covenant identified in the earth is between a male and a female. It's not between the men of earth and Father in the heavens and Son. That's the abomination of desolation. A man in love with himself, a man in love with his image, a man in love with his own law, and kind of shuts her right out of the covenant altogether. And, well, you're really just my womb to produce children to throw at this lie. That's really what we've understood it really means to a man. And we know that they hated her, and we can prove that it's she that they hated, especially in passages like Genesis 49, 23, 24. And we know it's the sons of Baal, the Baals, Baal, your husband, who shot at the daughters, the branches of the Creator, her line that she chose to send with the righteous law. We see them shooting at these daughters, this branch. Daughter Zion is her name. So, I mean, we see how they allegorized everything. That's the language of allegory and the language of riddle that God used to speak to us in. And it's only going to be those who are enlightened, who are seeking for the truth, willing to be enlightened by it, that's going to find it. All right? So we see them, and it says they shot at these daughters with hate in their heart. You know, pride is hateful. When we go back to Satan, the accuser, and that's what Satan means, the accuser, that takes us back to first Adam, Baal-Zebub. Baal is the name of your husband, right? Zebub is a fly, but Baal is also a dung god, a name of the dung god. So Zebub flies around the pile of dung. So it's telling you this, this meshing of this name, Beelzebub, is telling you actually who Satan is. And that's the first Adam who hated her and dealt treacherously with her at Adam. So it seems that the inception of this myth here in the Bible, the beginning of Adam and Eve, is where he actually struck her and dealt treacherously with her. So he accuses her. And when he accuses her, the spirit's representation on earth, she actually goes silent. To there we find her finally waking up in Isaiah 42. She says, "Long time have I held my peace. Long time have I been restrained. Now will I go forth as a travailing woman. I'm going to deliver my children." Now, you know, we've tied all of this together. We've studied it over and over and over again. I don't know how much more study I can do on them to wake you up, to wake those who are still asleep in religious lies and idol worship, that you are not supposed to be found worshiping, neither male nor female. But we see what took place in passages to do with Mount Sinai. So when we go to Mount Sinai, what is it I wanted to read here? I didn't actually look at it. I just transferred it over. Okay, it's also called the Mountain of Moses, is a mountain on the Sinai Peninsula of Egypt. It is one of several locations claimed to be the biblical Mount Sinai, the place where, according to the sacred scriptures of the three major Abrahamic religions, Torah, Bible, and Quran, the Hebrew prophet Moses received the Ten Commandments from God. And indeed, but what happened after Moses received the Ten Commandments of God? And this is where your thinking and your reasoning's got to come in. In various little verses here and there that makes up your little book that's been sealed, which is your mystery revealed in the end, that's held in the seventh angel's hand, which is also identified as a seventh trumpet or the seventh voice. A trumpet means a voice. So this seventh angel is found standing on land and sea. She seals up, and it is a she. Its daughter Zion taking back her birthright. The birthright belongs to the woman. It doesn't belong to no man. And therefore it places the law in her mouth, is where it should have always been. The symbol of her foot on land and on sea is a symbol of her taking back her birthright and her trumpeting. It says seal up this little book, the mystery until the end is basically what you're looking at. And mystery is something that it says you cannot know without actually being initiated into it. Well, the way that we're apparently initiated into it is by the spirit within us. That spirit is found in Esther. That is also means hidden. Her name also means hidden, according to Abram publication. Her name can mean hidden. So we know that the spirit goes to sleep in these little girls after we actually find the men murdering these holy stones, as they're called, which was supposed to be your foundation stone that this world was built upon, meaning the wise women's law. Because the creation comes forth from her womb, it comes from no man. No man can build a creation. He has to have the power of the female to do that. He doesn't do it. She does it. She technically is the presence of God with the power. And she can hand that power over to him, or she can keep it herself to build her own creation because she is the foundation. They build it together, technically, really, when it's all said and done. Because when he's upholding her law, they are building the true heavenly image of existence that is possible for us to live in together, I guess. Now, that's as far back as this Bible took me. All right. Is there more in it? I'm sure there probably is. But we know that it was his pride in not wanting to receive the law off of her tongue that led to him striking her. And what we mean by striking her is he actually he accuses her. That was a strike at her, a strikeout at her. We see him using lies to gnash upon her and to take her character down. So we see also the meaning of Satan's name, meaning to defame. We see the ones that got defamed in passages like Zephaniah chapter 3. They defamed and debased these women in the world by gnashing at them with lies and accusations that simply were not true. Over time, we find the women turning away from their own work. Yeah, work, not grace, work. And your work was to raise the children up in the mother's law. That's what it was. But we say, the children have come to the birth, a daughter of Zion was saying, and there is not strength to deliver. Why? Because the women were teaching a religious lie that came from husband's tongue. Because he struck her, he accused her, he perjured himself in the courts of heaven, we're told. So there is a higher power above us that is judging us. There is a court system that we can call out to once we are enlightened, once we recognize who we are, understand how things work, and they don't work the way that this world has taught us that they work. That's off of man's tongue, off of the liar's tongue, off of the accuser's tongue. Now, when we go to Mount Sinai, again, this was where the Ten Commandments from God came from. Now, I think the word God is possibly a made-up term. I do. She was simply called the Anointed One, is what she is referred to. She sat in the midst of her people, called the cherubim, which is also a name in another way of saying the nation of Israel. So she sat in the midst. And from there, the law was to go out to her people. And she chose these people, is the understanding in a lot of it. And by choosing them, then there comes in the concept of birth, right? She chooses to birth them with the truth. We also recognize that that's actually the parting of the admixture of lies known as the Red Sea, the wine that they drink off the table. We've discussed this theory, this understanding, this theological understanding, this riddle, this mystery that's been revealed to us through the Spirit. We've discussed it multiple times. So if you want to recognize what that's about and you truly have a heart seeking the truth, then you'll find that in the videos that are not far behind these on this channel, Ruth Abbey, and also on Eighth Day Dawning. We did a lot of studies into it. The further ones, we were in our climb, we will often speak of Christ, we will still speak of Jesus. And it's in the climb of to get to the truth, and you'll understand why I say climb. You'll understand why over time we come to realize that Jesus is actually the idol that the world is bowing to. A bulk of the world is bowing to it. We also know that they're bowing to Muhammad, they're bowing to Allah, they're bowing to Yahweh. These made up gods, Shiva, even many of these they're all made up gods. All right. The covenant that this world of people, of men, was agreed to her covenant and to uphold that. And that was found in these 10 commandments that come from this place called Mount Sinai. We see the dispensation of first the 10 commandments. And what happens? Okay, so let's just really examine this and put it together in our little minds, because they are little. We're as children growing and learning. That's what we're akin to. We're children learning. And we have to have a hunger for that, to learn what the mother's milk was to be. It says we feed off of milk at the breasts of kings. Yeah, currently we do. Except it's not the mother's milk we're drinking, right? because we know a king don't have milk, so you're drinking something else. But it definitely is not the mother's milk, and that's those that are weaned from the breast. To whom shall I teach knowledge? To the Spirit is teaching us as her children that are weaned from the breast, is your kind of your understanding. She's teaching us this truth. And so on Mount Sinai, what happened when Moses went down with the Ten Commandments? Well, in anger, he tosses that tablet to the ground and breaks the Ten Commandments because of why? Because of this golden male image that the children had began to make, the children of Israel had begun to make, right? And Aaron capitulated because they were getting angry at him, and he said, okay, sure, I'll make this idol. Give me each a piece of your jewelry. To which we find in accounts from actually the Jewish text itself that it was really only the men that participated in that, and the women refused to participate in this. There's a reason why it's that way. Because to make a male idol meant that you were rejecting your glory, and the glory were the women inside the nation of Israel. They were rejecting their own glory. Their own scepter and their own crown is what they were doing. And the men couldn't let go of this male idol worship that had followed them out of the land of Egypt, the land of idolatry. And we get passages that validates that understanding in Ezekiel where she says, Pharaoh, you muddy my waters, my pure waters. And we know the waters flow from the spouse of the covenant. We are shown that in passages like Song of Songs 4:12-15. We also know that it come from a place called Lebanon, the house in the forest of Lebanon. Eventually, over time, this allegorical language attests to the fact of what was going on. It really does. And so on Mount Sinai, when he went down, they were making this golden calf idol, and he cast the law to the ground, the true law, the commandment, the 10 commandments. Now, in Deuteronomy 4, the true anointed one will say the anointed. We won't say Lord, we won't say God, but they say God and they say Lord. Okay. I'm going to suggest that that eventually became a made up term. We know that there is a higher entity. We'll call that higher entity or being that came from above with the law of heaven as the anointed one, the one that was officially anointed, appointed to come and give you the law of heaven. And we find the pride of man rejecting it from a woman. They just had, it was like a sour grape on the father's tongue. Oh, they couldn't stomach it. They just couldn't stomach it. They couldn't handle it. Look what we women have had to handle. Oh man, every time you walked into a church, I know as a child, it was always, oh, I'm a female. You can expect a beating down somewhere at some point. Maybe not this week, but next week or Tuesday or whatever day you went to church. The next time you know, somewhere you were going to face that male beating a woman down over the head. Hey, dummy. Hey, beguiled. Hey, reason why the world is the way it is. And, you know, we were always going to face that. And they really got off on that. And the crap that we've had to take under the law systems. And it's always, you see these images, poor men who just don't want to go on. It's woe is me. And they created a system where they could really feel sorry for themselves, but also heap it on our heads and blame us for absolutely everything that goes wrong in this world because they can't take the blame for nothing, which is why it takes us that he struck her. There at Adam, he struck me and he dealt unfaithfully with me there. Yet is she the wife of the original covenant. Yet is she the spirit of the original covenant. Yet you dealt treacherously and married the daughter of a strange god, a harlot that bowed to you as if you were God. So he accuses her. He forces her to go silent, actually, over the following thousands of years that plays out in the Bible, in the truthful parts of it, but we know that Baal, he added word upon word upon word. And it's really just a little book. And that little book was to be found um, as her laws off her tongue, which began as these 10 commandments. Now, when he comes down, when he goes back up, he no longer um, he doesn't come back a second time with the Ten Commandments. He actually comes back with the dispensation of the law. So something transitioned in that time. Something happened in that time, in our failing understanding. And you know what it is? It was Sennacherib at this point in time. We're going to point at Sennacherib, who went up to her holy men. We're told that in passages like 2 Kings 19, that she who sat between the cherubim, her nation of Israel. Now, cherubim is identified in Numbers 2 as the nation of Israel. Of the 12 tribes, 3 tribes were to camp in each cardinal point, one of the 4 cardinal points. 3 tribes camped. God told them which ones. We'll say God. The Anointed One told them which one. And here is where we get a falter as well in our understanding. There was to be no idol representation, no images in a sense made. Yet we get 4 images here representing one of the 3 tribes would end up being the most numerous of, say, the Eastern Cardinal Point, we'll say. The tribe that was most numerous, you were going to take their emblem as the representation of that cardinal point. So that ended up being Judah. So that ended up being a lion, right? Lioness, possibly, but a lion in this cardinal point of the east. So we get this played out, and this shows up in the figure of the cherubim. Now, I'm going to suggest at some point they made these 4 emblems of these 4 cardinal point an actual image that held these 4 images on it. And those became the cherubim's representation sitting beside the Anointed One. Okay? Now, whether she fell into that trap or if she ordained it herself, we're not really told. We do see the men driving hard at creating images. And I think they knew what their plan was from the beginning. We saw Nimrod going against her from the beginning, almost from the very beginning. From the time Adam struck, we get men going against her, the Anointed One. What does Job say in Job? I say 20, 30, 31. That also happens to be where I'll often say, oh, that my accuser had written his accusation in a book, I would wear it like a crown upon my head. Well, he did write his accusations against her. The word for accuser there is husband, man. And he did write his accusations against her in this book, and he's done nothing but accuse from the pulpit and from the current law system of this world, based on religion of man. He has accused her, and he has put a yoke on her neck that he can't carry himself because of pride. Now, okay, so we see in 2 Kings 19, the Holy One sitting in the midst of possibly these images that had already been carved out and made by man. We see Solomon eventually, and this is the interesting part, and we did a video on this, I'll never find it. Pretty sure it's on 8th Day, but it may be on Ruth Abbey, where we read that when Jeroboam made 2 images of this bull god, he set one up in Dan and one in Ephraim. So that's taken in the whole 10 northern tribes, which was her jurisdiction. He makes them because he's fearful the people will go up to Judah, where also this image is standing of a bull. Now, they'll say, no, it wasn't a bull. Yes, it was verified in the notes that the image currently that was being worshipped in Judah or Jerusalem at that time was also the image of a bull. We saw King Solomon fashioning what he called cherubims as bulls. And he says, this is your God, right? That brought you out of the land of Egypt. And they go on and on and on. And eventually they'll say that's Jesus that brought you out of the land of Egypt. No, that was the presence of God identified as the who's able to part the admixture of religious lies and laws and bring you forth, birthing you. It's also representative of a birthing canal out of the land of Egypt, where they were taught male idol worship under the god of Apis, this golden bull, that they form and make, taking the glory away from my daughters forever and their children, and placing it upon a bull. We saw Solomon actually creating this bull god. Why did he single out the bull? That becomes an interesting question. Because when we're looking at the cherubim, and I'm doing mostly talk here, what was the and cherubims, plural, because they set not only one of these idol images up on one side of her, they set another one up on the other side. So there was two images. They really wanted to put this in play. So what were the images? Well, in the east, the most numerous was, of course, Judah, and the emblem for that was, as we know, lion, or lioness possibly. Most numerous in the west was the tribe of Ephraim. Oh, now this is interesting. Okay, so Ephraim was Joseph's line along with Manasseh. He had two sons. He ended up with a double portion. That's actually the daughter's representation of her glory. Joseph, we know they sub in a male for her. That's your basic. So the double portion XX, she's got the double portion of the spirit upon her. Though they want to put two sons here. Okay. So what was the image that represented Ephraim? He was the most numerous in that western direction. Though this changes again. All right. We could look at that in a future video, but these positions actually changes eventually. So in the west, I may have this wrong. It might have been different at that point in Numbers too. I should look that up. Okay, so here we're going to end up with a pause. You watching the video. So Numbers, I'm not hitting on anything. It's just going to take me a while to find the information I'm looking for. So in Numbers, we go to Numbers, chapter 2, right? Chapter 2, where they're shown being positioned around the tabernacle of God, which is where the glory sat. She, the daughter of Israel, the daughters of Israel. And then she instructs them. Okay, so the lion was the east, the ox was the west. Yeah. So did it change here? Something changes. I just remember that. I can't remember everything that changes. Okay, so Judah. We have okay. So then we have on the south side, Reuben. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so we'll bypass it because it's still working out for now. We can examine that maybe later. I don't know. But what represented Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim, was a bull, supposedly, an ox, or actually, technically, it should have been a heifer, representing the nation of Israel in the Genesis 15:9 covenant. In the south, of course, was Reuben. He was the most numerous in that direction, and he, on his emblem, had the face of a man, or we could say a woman. Then in the north was the tribe of Dan that was the most numerous, and he was represented by an eagle as his insignia. So this is showing you the cherubim right there, represented as the nation of Israel. Now we'll talk about the seraphim. The seraphim is actually feminine, the feminine representation over time as the Shekinah glory, but we're not going to go into that. And we see her train filling the temple, the glory filling the temple, the long bridal train is kind of the idea there. But anyway, so so we see that what she possibly sat between at this point in time may well have been already idol representations of these tribes of the nation of Israel. So she was probably sitting between, it's a speculation, yes, but she is shown sitting between cherubim in the midst of her people. We see Hezekiah going up to her, petitioning her, and at which point we find that Sennacherib has gone up to her holy mountain and has cut her trees down, her daughters down, the holy ones that represented her law. Where was that, do you suppose? Well, I say the house in the forest of Lebanon. But the house in the forest of Lebanon was on, well, for all intended purposes, was Mount Lebanon. So we're still trying to figure this out. And we're told we're just going to talk this out in our thinking here. In Psalm 68, that Bashan is a many-peaked mountain, right? Bashan. And she says, I will raise up Bashan from the bottom, basically of the bottom of the ocean. Bashan, I will raise you back up. So if Bashan is a many-peaked mountain, and some suggest there are as many as 7 to 8 peaks on this mountain, we could have Mount Lebanon, we could have Mount Sinai, we could have Mount Zalmon. I said Sinai as the second one. Mount Zalmon is mentioned. And there's another one, okay? Mount, what was it? Horeb. Why is that important? Okay, so when Hezekiah goes up to petition the daughter of Zion, who sits in the midst of the cherubim, her nation of Israel, may well have been 2 idols standing beside her at this point, he petitions her that she will prevent Sennacherib from taking the people, his people, her people. They were no longer her people. They were actually going against her. And she was quite angry at this time. You can see she was angry. But he petitions her to stop that from happening. Don't let Sennacherib take us captive. Please, we petition you, O daughter of Zion, the presence of God, not to let this happen. So Sennacherib mocks and makes fun and says, you're going to count on this Lord to protect you from me, who has gone up and destroyed every nation in the land and all of their gods, and your God will be no different. But she was the presence identified that came from above. I made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? For what portion of God is there from above? Job says in Job 30:31. All right. She also says, oh, that my accuser had written his accusations. The accuser was Adam in the garden, also known as Baalzebub, Lord of Doom. All right. But he testifies that it was the spirit from above that he made the covenant with, and she came from above. Now that's a symbol of heavenly authority. Okay. And when she came here, she had the law in her tongue. In Mount Sinai, we get them at making an image, an idol. That's where the image gets made. More or less is on Mount Sinai. So the meaning of Mount Sinai is, where's the word? Oh, it's on the other string here. We've looked it up. Okay, so we'll go to Mount, am I in the right place? No, I'm not. Okay, so just a second here till we get straightened away. So I'm looking to see if I still got it pulled up. Right there. So it's Strong's Hebrew 5514, the mountain where the law was given, not the law of God, not the law of the anointed one. That gets crashed to the ground. The second time Moses come down, it's the dispensation of who? The law of man. So Sinai, of uncertain derivation, Sinai, Mountain of Arabia, Sinai, probably from the same as sin. Why was sin so important? Because Sennacherib was factoring in here. And sin is the first part of Sennacherib's name, which means a moon god. It says sin has replaced the brothers, reshaped them, reformed them. It also has the idea of clay, reforming clay. They're at Adam, they struck me. All right? So they were actually forming images. This gets to be very important in our understanding. Okay. Let me see here. I'll make sure I got it all. Okay. So watch this. When we go to Mount Horeb, okay, so we're coming from Mount Sinai, where they already had rejected her law. He comes down the second time with the dispensation of the law of man, of the hater, the one who hated her and struck her. We see references to this in 2 Kings 19. We see the Holy One, she, daughter Zion, sitting between the midst of the cherubim. Technically should have been her people Israel, but appears at this time to be representations of idols that she's sitting in the midst of. We're just speculating here now until we get this all straightened out in our heads. Hezekiah comes and says, and Sennacherib says, I have gone up to your high places and I have cut down your tall trees. We get that referenced in also passages like Psalm 74, I think it is, yeah, where they were going into their temple, which represents the female body, and they were cutting down their images, the understanding of who wisdom was. And that was the women, the spirit identified on the earth, the women here of the daughter of Zion here sitting between the cherubim, her people. So what did Horeb mean, and why is this so important? So Strong's Hebrew 2722, Horeb, and it means to be dry. Why would it mean to be dry, Horeb? Because Zion links us, the word Zion links us to a dry desert land. It also means desolate, Horeb, a generic name for the I can't say that word, Sinaitic mountains. Desolate. Okay. So can we connect the two? Well, yes, we absolutely can. If we study, we absolutely can, and we should have a strong desire to do that, to study. What's Mount Horeb? Watch this. Watch what it says. If I can find where I want to read. Right here. So the etymology of Horeb. This is on Wikipedia. I'll paste all these links if I think to do it. But this is on Wikipedia. Horeb. Etymology. Horeb is thought to mean dry place. Interesting. Mount Zion, or daughter Zion, rather. Zion will eventually run you out to mean a dry desert land, meaning they didn't want her law. That was the 10 Commandments. All right. So Horeb is thought to mean dry place or glowing heat. Oh my, why is that important? Perhaps because of the Shulamite, which says, look not upon me. My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard, but my own vineyard I have not kept. My own children I haven't taught my law to, my mother's law to, my own creation, my creation that I weave and form together. But you had to use my power to do it, didn't you? So Horeb is thought to mean dry place or glowing heat, which seems to be a reference to what? The sun, Horeb. Why Sinai may have derived from the name of Sin, Sennacherib's first part of his name, and then we get cherub. Sennacherib. Senna is blueberry bush or blackberry bush, because a blueberry isn't picky. A blackberry bush and cherub. We just know what that means now, don't we? So, why Sinai may have derived from the name of Sin, who went up to her high places and cut her women down with her law. The ancient Mesopotamian religion deity of the moon, yeah. And thus Sinai and Horeb would be the mountains of the moon and sun, respectively. This is interesting. Looks like there was a splitting of a mountain going on here, doesn't it? We won't look at that. But they speak of the splitting of mountain, and then they talk of the Mount of Olives. Okay, so we got another mountain there, don't we? We do. But there was a splitting here going on. And it's interesting, we got the moon god and sun, respectively. What does the Shulamite say? Look not upon me. Look not upon me. My mother's sons were angry with me. My skin has gone dark. Look not upon me because I am dark, she says. Anger also has the sense of a burning heat, a burning law. All right? He took control of her power, is what he was doing. And he went up to her high places and he cut her women down. She says, the children have come to the birth. Daughter Zion, who's sitting between the cherub, in 2 Kings 19 says, the children have come to the birth, but there is not strength to deliver. Now, we understood what all that meant in the last video. We get why Mount Sinai does in fact mean a desolation. There was also the understanding here, I can't quite remember where it was, of Mount Zelmon. So Zelmon has to be the same mountain. It's got to be. It's got to be the same mountain that divided, in a sense. Mount Sinai, and Mount Horeb is what we're looking at here. That possibly is the two mountains, that it was the one mountain. And when they rejected her law, when they went down, when Moses went down and found them creating this gold idol, he cast the 10 Commandments to the ground and they break. He has to go up a second time. The second time he goes up, he gets the dispensation of the law. So there was something going on in this camp at this time, something much larger. And I think it had to do with Sennacherib coming into the camp. That's what was going on. And he says, I cut your high places down. From there, when Moses goes up the second time, he comes back with the dispensation of man's law. So what's the meaning of Zelman? Why is Zelman important? Because we get it mentioned here. Okay? Psalm 68. She come from Sinai. You watch, she come from Sinai. So they're always playing around with names. They're splitting hairs. They're trying to make it really difficult for you to follow the trail of what they did. And we understand through men like Nimrod, through men like King Solomon, Sennacherib, and Nebuchadnezzar, these four men, beginning with Adam, they're at Adam. They struck me with the myth of Adam. They struck me with their lie and accused me of many, many things that were not true. But we see these four men really building the system of 666. The ideology that you hearken to is bowing to God as male and father and son who made everything. And what it means he made it don't mean he literally made it, because he didn't. The weavers are identified as female, and they weave not only the clay together in their wombs, they are the potter, the maker, the creator that you denied. You take control of her house and her power, and you cause her to reshape it, is what you do. So she reshapes it under the Babylonian Assyrian system as a harlot, hearkening to the lies of man. But she's promised to pick herself up out of the dust of the earth. In passages like Isaiah 29, where the true Lord wisdom says, I hear a familiar spirit. One speaking wisdom. Some of my daughters are actually standing up and speaking wisdom now. They're getting it. They're understanding it. We're supposed to be the children of reason, not the children of stupidity. But you know, I happened to catch a video. It says, me being stupid proves that God exists. You know what? They just want to be able to say God is male. That's all that is. All right? They just want to say God, man, God, God, man, man, God. That's all they want to do. And get you down on your knees, handing your hosts over to this lie so they can stay in power. But what does it say? I saw Satan, Adam, fall like lightning. Where did he exalt himself? To her throne. Now I'll be like the Most High. Isaiah 14, who from all intended purposes was that? Men like Sennacherib. Though we saw Nimrod, let's go to Nimrod now. We'll bring Nimrod in, because remember, he built the Tower of Babel. He was technically the first Assyrian. First, let's look at Sennacherib again. What does it say under Sennacherib on Wikipedia? It says, King of Assyria. king of Babylon, king of the four corners of the world, and king of the universe. Wow, that seems pretty proud and boastful of a king. But watch Nimrod now. Watch what it says of Nimrod. Now remember, he was also known as Marduk. All right? Biblical account. It says this in a little, you go down in under the heading of biblical account in under Nimrod from Wikipedia, and it'll say, who will shepherd Assyria's land with swords? The land of Nimrod in its gates. Thus, she will deliver us from Assyria, should it invade our land and should it trample our country. So we get Nimrod here linked directly to Assyria, which is important because in Isaiah 52, we see her being yoked under a lie and law system. It says, pick thyself up out of the dust, dear daughter, and take back what rightfully belongs to you. In Isaiah 52, in verse 4, it says, there my people went down into Egypt, and the Assyrian oppressed them. So we know Sennacherib followed King Nimrod's doctrine. And we also know men like Mordecai followed him because his name was Marduk. He went by the name of Marduk, which was king of Assyria, king of Babylon. These two lands are the same lands. And you can say, no, they're not. Yes, they are. All the study you do will bring you right back. And they went down into Egypt. There's a location in Egypt called Sin, the moon god. It says there the Assyrian oppressed us. All right? The daughters. That's what he was looking to oppress. So watch this. It says the Bible states that he was a mighty hunter before the Lord and began to be a mighty hunter in the earth. So this is at the very beginning. I told you so this is actually at the very start. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord and began to be mighty in the earth. Nimrod became a symbol of defiance against God, not against God, who they're calling God now because man's God, male's God, right? This is the whole image that they were after. Man as God being worshipped in the earth by the woman who has the power to weave and create. They wanted her power so that they could shape what they wanted shaped, and they got it when you have men like Nimrod factored into the equation and understanding what they were up to, along with King Solomon, along with Sennacherib, and along with Nebuchadnezzar. By Nebuchadnezzar's time, we had in full, the full plan running full steam, and that was the image of a male as God. This is what they were after. And so Nimrod became a symbol of defiance against who? Not against God, against the anointed one, the appointed one with the law of heaven. They were rejecting her. They did not want her law. All right? You weren't to worship her, but watch this. Over time, legends identified him, Nimrod, with other figures like, and it gives three names here, I'm not going to read them, and credited him with innovations such as wearing the first crown in introducing idolatry. All right, so what was it that Nebuchadnezzar had made in Daniel chapter 2 and threatened with his advisors, had advised him he should do this, and so he went along with it all. Yeah, he went along with it all for a reason. That if any didn't bow to that gold idol, his image basically is what it was. You're looking at a male image of the king as God and Lord. If they don't bow, you threaten them, you're going to burn them in the furnace. Hell, Hades, hell's fire. Yeah, with the womb of Sheol are we at agreement. Yeah, and when the overflowing scourge comes in, they can't catch us because we hid ourselves under a refuge of lies when we created this idol. And boy, did they. You got to dig hard to find the idolatry, which is why it says, study to show yourself approved unto the Spirit, unto the Anointed One, who is still holding power over this entire creation. And learn to part the word, the admixture of lies, and birth your children out of the land of idolatry. Now we saw him getting the daughters drunk on wine in passages like Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 15 and 16. They put strong drink to her lip, wine, the admixture of lies, and got her drunk. And she went to sleep, which is why we get hidden with Esther. Mordecai was a worshiper of Marduk. Marduk was another name of Nimrod. We saw what Nimrod was building. So he brings a little girl after they've murdered the wise women, who was identified as your cornerstones or your stones in Lamentations 2. And then the sons become as nothing more than the value of clay pots. It couldn't hold her water. They were offering up blood libations. Wash your hands in blood. You can't wash in blood. You get stained in it. And then you are no longer permitted into the heavens with this ridiculous theology 666 on your head, which takes us back to King Solomon. Yeah, we studied that in the last video. He was changing the light of glory, the daughter's light, over to darkness. 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. That word means light, female. So they were after her womb to produce the nations, the clouds of witnesses that would say, Father and Son, and bow and worship. Yet the stone, identified as the righteous spirit, as the righteous daughters, cut out without hands. Jesus ain't cutting it out. You know who's cutting it out? The Spirit. Cutting it out, smashes the toes on the idol of that man, Satan, Baal, Beelzebub, husband, the accuser, getting himself worshipped. He exalted himself to her throne in Isaiah 14. Yet, look at you. You have become weak like one of us. You are nothing more than a man. You are not God's or God or Father and Son. God. You are liars and accusers who couldn't receive the law off of the one appointed to give it to you. You weren't to bow to idols of any kind. You were to follow the law. Now, they'll say, grace isn't law. Grace is bowing to a man as your head and washing in his blood. Does that make sense? It does not. That doesn't reason, but only the children of wisdom and reasoning will be able to identify that as the truth. The true word that we should be carrying, it should be Emmet, should be mothers of truth, the daughters, and the son should be upholding her law. That's the covenant identified. Now, we've connected Mount Horeb, we've connected Mount Sinai, we've actually connected Mount Zalmon, where I was going to, and why it was so important, because she comes from Mount Sinai. Let me see. Where is it? Where's Sinai? Well, it's quite close to the beginning. It's here somewhere, sorry. But where is it? Okay, the Lord is found coming from Mount Sinai here in Psalm 68. Now, we've identified the Lord's name here, Adonai, which is also an idol. So we have to break these all down to understand what was going on. So Adonai, Strong's Hebrew 136, we find is actually her number, Lord's number, 136. And we see her as the spirit identified as one burned to an ash heap, dry. She became as a dry desert land, Zion did. So, where is it? Okay, it must be down further. I'm just missing it. So it tells us she came, the Lord, she, God, he, it says right there. It is verse 8. The earth shook, the heavens also dropped at the presence of, not God, the anointed one, dropped. So what does it mean, dropped? I never looked that word up. The heavens also dropped rain at the presence of, not God, the anointed one, the one appointed to give you the law, which we find her sitting between the cherubim identified as her nations in nation Israel in Numbers 2, that the men were making into idols. Strangely enough, King Solomon pulls out the image of the bull and then sets that up in the temple, to which Jeroboam says, well, his advisors advises him to make 2 images of these bulls and place one up in Ephraim and Dan. It's interesting that that actually takes in the swathe of territory of the female appointed. So why Ephraim? Why did he go Ephraim? Because it's the daughter of Ephraim, identified as the firstborn of mother's womb. He was trying to steal her glory from her. And over the course of time, that's exactly what the men managed to do by making idol after idol after idol and deceiving these daughters into this pathway of idol worship of males as God. You denied your glory. That's what you did, which was represented as the daughter of Zion come to give you the law of heaven. You denied that. And you struck her at Adam. There at Adam, they dealt treacherously with me there. They accused me. That's what they were up to, accusing. Satan-Baalzebub takes us straight back to the first man, we'll say first man. Well, the myth that they wrote, this lie that they wrote, so they could put the woman into a corner and steal power over her womb and her ability to create. That's what it's showing us. She's the one that has the ability to weave a creation together. He just took control of that ability and taught her a lie over time after he struck her and gnashed at her with his lies. So Zalmon, back to Zalmon, verse 8, the earth shook, the heavens also dropped at the presence of God. Even Sinai itself was moved at the presence of God, the God of Israel. It's not God, it's the anointed one, the one they want to say Messiah. No, anointed one is the appointed one with the law. That was her. And we saw Sinai shaking. So it was that the splitting then in allegory? Male and females were literally being split apart at this lying theology, the pride of these men who wanted to play God. So what did it say? We'll keep going here. Kings of armies did flee apace, and she that tarried at home divided spoil. Though you have laid among the pots, yet shall your wings be like a dove covered with silver, and her feathers with yellow gold. That's identifying the Lord, 136, Lord of Lords. She was the scepter. She was identified as the crown. Though those are all figurative representations over time created by a man who did not want her law. God says, you did not want me, you wanted a king. And then we see them making kings. And then at the end they say, King God, come and get us. Oh boy, are you in trouble. That's an idol who doesn't hear, who doesn't speak, who doesn't see. Man cannot create life. We're told that in Isaiah 48. She says, you gave my name to another. You gave it to an idol is what you did, and called him the creator. You called him the weaver. I weave, I create, I am the potter. And I'll prove it by sending my children that speak here and listen. Yours don't even breathe. Yours is an idol. And he did not tell you these things from the beginning to the end. He didn't, your idol that you make in your image because you're in love with yourselves. I'll send mine to teach you the truth. And she says that in Isaiah 48, she, the creator. So what does it say here? It says, when the Almighty scattered kings in it, it was white as snow in Zalmon. So there again, we bring in Lebanon, Mount Lebanon, the house in the forest of Lebanon. We're getting multi-peaks here in Bashan. And she says, I'll raise you up. A mountain of God is the mountain of Bashan, a mountain of many peaks in the mountain of Bashan. And what does she say? What does she say here? Can I find it? She may have said it before that. Okay, can I find it? I probably won't find it now, but I really want to find it. But she says, I'll raise up Mount Bashan. Of course, I can't find it. So let me read through these and we'll be done. I didn't expect the video to be that long. Sorry, I talked too long. But it's about piecing it together, piecing the truth back together versus the lie that we've been told for thousands of years, hundreds of years at the very least. This really well shaped and created and polished lie. So that has ascended on high, that has led captivity captive, that has received gifts for women, yea, for the rebellious also, that the Lord God might dwell among them, that the anointed one might dwell amongst her children. The Lord says, I will bring again from Bashan, the mount of many peaks. I will bring my people again from the depths of the sea. You see, my people. Then ironically, we get that verse, those verses that we've looked at many times in the Apocrypha. It's called 2nd Ezra, and it's chapter 13. I will bring the one that I have reserved for the end from up amongst the sea, rising. Sea is allegorized as peoples. And I'll bring I will bring my people again from the depths of the sea. Jeremiah was told to make a scroll and say, Babylon, Babylon. I can't remember the passage. You will sink like a stone. Basically, is what Jeremiah is instructed to do in that passage. So Babylon is tossed to the bottom of the sea, right? Is the understanding. That's in Jeremiah. Let me see if I can find it. So we're getting a handle. It took us a lot of years to do that. On the figurative language known as the riddle language, or the mysterious language that God speaks in through the Spirit in the Bible. So that is the spiritual language laid over the physical language. So let me see here. It should be, I think, in the last chapter of Jeremiah, but I may not have that right. Let me see. Sorry, but I'll turn that back. Let me see if I can find it. Quick. Okay, I'm probably not going to find it. But God instructs Jeremiah, I'm pretty sure it's Jeremiah, to write a scroll and to tie a stone on it and to cast it into the river Euphrates, I believe. And to say, as this stone sinks, so will Babylon sink. So here, yeah, see, they were creating idol worship. And they began on the Mount Bashan, which was a many-peaked mountain. We saw the North congregation identified as the daughters, the village of women, in Psalm 68 that met on the North Mountain and took the word of the law out to the people. That was their responsibility. We saw a man deciding that he was not going to receive that law, though he agreed to do so. We find in Isaiah 14 that North congregation is mentioned, and it is the congregation of God, also identified as camp of God, which is found with Shulamite as a little camp of she-goats. Now that becomes important because then it identifies a camp of she-goats, also known as the daughters of Zion, also known as the lilies of the covenant. So the lily becomes a very important study. You have to study this lily, which is identified as this group of women, which are given covenant, which then we find Jacob wrestling with the angel of the Lord And he calls this camp, which is called Mahanaim, the camp of God in the presence of God. So he's wrestling with the birthright holder, the one who holds the birthright, meaning the power of creation through the law to shape her own creation in a way that she would have it shaped. But he wrestles with her and she doesn't hand it over, but he says, give me a name, give me your name. And she basically says to him, you already know my name. My name is Israel. You are not to ask the name of an angel. So that's factoring into it. He was asking her name, but he already knew it. He had already stole it, is what it's saying there. So to prove that Jacob was in fact her enemy and not her friend, and that he was against her, she, what does she do? She hamstrings him. That's what she does there. She hamstrings Jacob there, proving that he was an enemy. We know that that's proof of an enemy because the only time animals are hamstrung, or which is a nasty thing to do, is found with David when he's going against enemy armies. So she did the same thing there. She hamstrung, I don't know the tense there, Jacob. He says, truly this was the army of God, the presence of God, Mahanaim. That same little camp is identified as being with a Shulamite, and they are identified as a flock of she-goats. Why the she-goat is so important? Because she's found in the Genesis 15:9 covenant. We find the he-goat, Daemon, devil, Satan, climbing to her mountain. There it gets called Mount Seir, the devil's mountain. So that takes us to what Sennacherib was doing, men like Sennacherib was doing. This is the same story around and around and around. The more you study it, you begin to understand the figurative language that God, the Spirit, speaks unto us all. So, now, Nimrod. Was there anything else on Nimrod? He goes by many names, yeah. He's the Assyrian. He's the Babylonian, as Sennacherib was, which makes me question if King Solomon was not, in fact, an Assyrian or a Babylonian. He was. In heart, he may have been of a different bloodline, but he was at heart. He was a Babylonian. He was an Assyrian. In Zalmon, she scatters them. The meaning of Zalmon, according to Abram Publications, right before I got me, means the place of the idol, comma, man of the idol. So where is Zalmon? Where did Zalmon take place? Image or idol? Etymology of Zalmon is image or idol. So where was that took place? Sinai. Again, it takes us to the mountain peaks of Bashan. How many of them? How many are there really? Here we see Zalmon. There she will scatter the kings when it's snowy, right? On this mountain peak where idols were created, right? The dispensation of man's law. She became a desolate spirit, right? They were against her light. They were against her law that would illuminate. And they did not want passage into the heavens. They did not want protection. And they violated this covenant. So in all of these, I got Mount Sinai, I got Sennacherib, Mount Horeb, Nimrod. Those all are under Wikipedia's heading. I'll pin them underneath. Then we got Zalmon on Arabian Abram Publications. We got Baal Wikipedia. We can go there. We got Baal again, Abram Publication, and then we got Psalm 68. All of these we factored into this study to identify the desolate spirit. So that again takes us all back to the abomination of desolation, a man in love with his own bloody image. He would not receive her law. He would not. And she becomes the desolate spirit. That is why understanding what took place on Mount Sinai and who was involved here is so important that we piece it together with what little pieces that we have to piece it together. Because let's face it, they were robbing us of information that we needed. So it really comes back to um, piecing it together, this riddle, these dark sayings. It's a mystery to us until it is no longer a mystery, until the little book sealed is no longer sealed. And the reason why it's not sealed is because they hand it off to men in Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah 29, it might be 28, where it says, read this. And the educated man there says, I cannot. Then they hand it to the uneducated man. He says, but I cannot. They cannot tell you what it means. It is not on them to tell you what it means. It is on the Spirit's representation, which is the daughters, the feminine, which is the law off of her tongue that man rejected in pride. So then that takes us to the term Antichrist, the anti-anointed one, the anti-appointed one. Man appoints himself, Baal, king, as Lord and God, made himself a crown, and put himself in charge of her law and kicked her off of her own throne, off of her own mountain in symbology, Sinai. Right? Not reasoning? Of course it's reasoning. That's what you were supposed to do. I understand why it would be so hard just to jump from, oh, I'm a Christian to, oh, I'm not a Christian. It took us, oh, gee, how many years am I up to? I started this climb roughly around 2011. It was just beginning in 2010. That's why I don't say 10. It really took hold in my spirit, I think, in 2011. From there to this current point. That's not simple study, and it's been a real gradual understanding of what's wrong with our current world and why women feel inferior, why they're presented as inferiors. They are afraid of her power. She is known as the presence. In allegorical language, she has the power to part waters. In allegorical language, which comes in the form of the Red Sea, the admixture of lies, presented as a false Messiah, a man who died to wash you in his blood. Yeah, you're washed in blood, all right. That's the man's law that creates war and hatred. And it says he hated her from the beginning. He had no cause to hate her. He just hated her in pride. And so we see Baal again, going back to Genesis 49. Baal shooting at the branch, the daughters, right? They were known as the key of David, yeah, versus the key of Solomon. And we've discussed it all for anybody who is actually interested in learning and parting the admixture of lies. We know the pride of man is a lot harder one to come to unless he hasn't been raised in this lie at all. I had to say it in the beginning. I still believe in a creator. I still believe in a power that is higher in understanding than ours. We have been so greatly misled. And these powers created us. I don't believe that we crawled out of bacteria. I'm definitely not an atheist. I do not believe in that. I do believe in higher understanding. I do believe in a higher power. Where that all takes us to in the eventuality of the study, we know that she came from above. We know she was sent from the heavens to give man the law of heaven. We see him, Satan, the accuser, in Isaiah 14, who was nothing more than a man, exalting himself to her throne of power. And he says, now I'll be like the Most High. The Most High that created heaven and earth is identified as wisdom. She says, when I come, in Proverbs chapter 1, she says, you couldn't be bothered to listen to my law. And that's wisdom speaking. So she says, I will laugh at you in the day of your calamity when you couldn't hear a word I had to say. And yet it is my law that creates. It's my law that creates. And so I was going somewhere with it. I forget what it was. So anyway, there's our study. I can't remember what I was gonna say. It just flew out of my head. So, anyway, I hope. How long is the video? Too long. You watch. Oh my gosh, it went dark. Why did it go so dark? May not be able to post it. Oh, I'm so sorry. Why did it go so dark? Whoops. No, why did it go so dark? Okay, sorry about the dark video. It must be that light doing it. It is. It is. It's the light they're doing it. I apologize for a dark video. I should have went in and checked it. So thanks for watching. I hope you continue to be blessed with an abundance of truth, abundance of the water that'll wash the blood law, man's law and lie of idol worship off of you. And I do hope you're blessed with a lovely day. The sun ain't out. It is still snowing. It's very, very cold, bitter here. Anyway, our nighttime temperatures are like minus 26, 27, so pretty cold, but it's starting to warm up again. Like I know it's cold out when you're just getting these little tiny, tiny pieces of snow. When it warms up, the flakes get really big. So it's still pretty cold out. It's lighter than it has been, but the sun ain't exactly out. Anyway, sorry. I know you don't want a weather forecast. Thanks for watching. Again, I hope you're all blessed with a lovely day.